everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome to the first month's edition of Beyond the Brushstrokes. If you're watching this, then you are watching to see the tutorial of how to do the mirror for July. So a couple just quick things I want to go over first. Here's some of the stencils. These two are pretty self-explanatory, so you don't really need to know anything specific with them. These two are two different stencils. They do not go together, so you might be like, why did she just send half of a bow? Because I wanted to be able to send you as many stencils as possible, so all that you'll be doing for this one is when you put on one side and you trace it, you'll just flip it over, line it up how it looks nicely with the other side. You won't be tracing this part, you'll just be tracing this part of it. And the same goes for this one. So you'll be tracing this whole thing, then you'll flip it over, line it up how it needs to be. Don't trace the center, just trace the outside of these. I recommend personally using acrylic markers, whatever brand. The one that I like best is Shuttle Art Ink Control, which you'll find in your supply list, but get whatever works for you in your price range. These are also good, the dual ends for the stencils, because there is this kind of pointy end that works really well for tracing, and then this brush end that looks good for just filling in the stencil. So stuff like this is also really good, but you can really make this your own. You do not have to follow the tutorial completely. Change up the colors, have fun with it. Don't forget to tag me in your creation so I can repost. All right, have fun. So I'm gonna show you a few different techniques of how to use these stencils. First, line them up where you want them to go. And then you can use a sponge brush to dab white paint into it. You just want to do this very lightly, otherwise the paint will bleed out under the stencils. Gently peel it off and wipe off any wet paint. Place the stencil in a new position. This technique is using a brush, and I'm just outlining around the edges and then painting in towards the center. This one will bleed less, but it's just not the best as the acrylic markers, I think. So again, just gently peel it off. Again, you can see that there were some spots I needed to fix on that one. But generally, I like to use acrylic markers for these stencils because they don't bleed that much. They usually come out with a very clean line. Unfortunately, I didn't have my usual white markers for this, so I'm using a very oversized, chunky acrylic marker. But I do suggest getting some with fine tips for this. My favorite are the Shuttle Art Ink Control, but any acrylic markers will work. So you're just gonna place these flower designs all over your mirror until you're happy with how it's filled in. To add these streaks to give the flowers some dimension, so I'm using a very light blue, and I'm adding a few streaks from the center of the flowers going outwards towards the top. It basically covers about half of the flower, but always starts in the center, and then you're just doing these quick light streaks going outwards. Take a brown and you'll do these large circles for the biggest flowers, and then just some little dots in the centers for the smaller ones. And then just repeat these two steps all over all of the flowers. So next I'm going to be placing this large bow at the center of the mirror. Remember, this is just one half of it. So I'm using the more fine tip of this marker because it's double-ended. So when you trace the stencils, you want to do this very gently. Don't push hard against the stencil at all, otherwise it will overlap into the areas it's not supposed to. Peel it off, then you'll flip the stencil over and get the placement so it looks nicely with the bow, and you'll only be tracing the long end and then those two folds. Now this is where we're going to make it look more realistic. So where there's a space where the stencil was, that's where I'm going to be outlining with a brown marker to start. And just where I'm at on this ribbon, I'm going to be doing some streaks downwards from the center of the bow. Same thing over on these two, I guess you would say, heart shapes. And then I'm going to add some streaks of brown around the curve. Then do the exact same thing on the other half of the bow. There's going to be a lot of layers of colors to this, and that's what helps to make it really pop. So next I'm going to be using black, and I'm basically just going over those exact same spots as I did with the brown. I'm just not doing as much of it. So the black is really just going to be some additional shadows to give it some contrast, but you can see I've gone over the same spots. I may add a couple additional streaks just to give the bow a little bit of texture. Then we'll move on to highlights, and in all honesty, I did use a light orange first before this light pink, but it just wasn't showing up. So you're just going to be adding some streaks kind of opposite to where the dark streaks are. So anywhere you don't have a dark streak, that's where you'll be putting the lighter highlighted streaks. Next, I'm going to place this other bow kind of down the center of the mirror and doing that same process. So outlining and then filling in with the red, then flipping the stencil over and doing the same thing. So remember, you really want to think about the placement of it so it doesn't overlap with the other half of the bow. And then again, trace it and fill it in. Then again, we're starting off with the outlining of the brown. I like to go around the center of the bow first. I just think that's the most obvious place to outline. This one is going to have a little bit more shadows for that underside. So you can see I outline the whole thing, and then I'm just sort of loosely filling it in with brown in that whole area to give it a shadowy effect. Doing those same streaks, so starting from the center of the bow, going downwards towards the ribbons. You really can't go wrong with this. You're really just adding texture to it. It's not meant to look super realistic. It's meant to, look a little bit more poppy or cartoony. I add some streaks along the sides, and then in that heart section, and some more streaks going outwards from the center. Then just like the bow before, you're going to use black and go over those spots that you just did. Again, a little bit less, that way the black is still showing. And then for the shadow, just outline kind of around the top section and then have a few streaks going downwards, and that'll really give it that illusion of having a shadow underneath. Then we will do the same thing with the highlights. So if you want to do the light orange, you can, but really you just need either a light orange or a light pink to add the highlights to the bow. You don't need both. I was just experimenting to see if I could get one of them to work, but the lighter orange just was not showing up as much as I had hoped. So I'm going to be doing that exact same bow on the other side. So really the design is to have the biggest bow up at the center, these two medium-sized ones somewhere along the sides, and then the smallest bows, which you'll see next, will just be sprinkled in wherever you'd like them. Obviously 4th of July is over, so you can do these with whatever colors you'd like. I still think it looks good to have these patriotic colors because it is, America 250, but also because Labor Day is coming up, so you got to still have a little bit of patriotic decoration for that, especially if you're going to be having a party. So the next step is to tape this smaller bow to the mirror, and I'm doing that nice light blue that I used to highlight or add shadows in the flowers. Trace around the whole thing. Then I'll be using a dark blue to outline around the center of it, and then just adding some streaks around the edges. This bow is a lot smaller, so really you can just kind of outline the outside edges of it and then add a couple streaks in the center parts of the ribbon. You could also just use any color and make it a solid design. You don't have to add these additional streaks to make it look more realistic. This is just what I like to do, but it does still look good just by itself with the solid color, which you'll see after I pull this one off. I think it looks a little bit better with the darker color. So if you are feeling a little bit intimidated and maybe don't want to add those highlights or shadows, then just do the solid color and see it still looks really nice in there. For the darker one, I'm adding highlights though, not shadows, so I'm going back and using that light blue, again circling around the center of the bow, outlining some on the sides, and then adding a few streaks in the centers of the ribbons. And then you'll just repeat this process with the smaller ones as much as you want, so you could do a bunch, you could do a little. Your design, again, it doesn't have to look like this. You can really make this your own. I think it actually looked pretty cute to just have the flowers by themselves, so don't feel like you have to use all of the stencils you get. This is just the tutorial of this specific design. So, you know, take and leave what you'd like to make it your own. And here is the finished design. I really like how it came out, so I hope that you all did too, and I hope that you enjoy making this at home. So I will see you next month.